Hey, we're the Flick Chicks. I'm Anne.
And I'm Monica.
And this is the podcast where we get over the 1-inch barrier of subtitles.
Yes, we do. And we're introduced to arguably the most acclaimed and talked about movie of 2019, which is Parasite by the genius director Bong Joon-ho. So I guess we'll just get right into it. Right?
Yeah. So we'll be just doing a recap.
As usual.
And then talking about what we liked, what we didn't. Have a little fun question time, and then we'll go into the grades. Report cards.
Just a little disclaimer. If you have not watched this movie, turn this podcast off right now and go watch it. Because I think it's best watched when you don't know any information about it.
I think that's all movies, and I hate people who spoil stuff for themselves.
That's true. But also, yes. I feel like this, especially just because it's like there's such a twist in the middle, that the whole experience is just like you need to just watch it. So if you haven't watched it, get out of here.
Yeah, click off now.
You need to listen. If you have no plan on watching it, that's fine. But you should watch it. It's the best. Like, just another disclaimer. This is my favorite movie ever. So,
but also listen to our podcast. So it's like a give
watch
or
it
take.
and then listen to us.
Yeah, it's like listen, but also go away. But listen.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess just a little bit of a setting. So obviously this movie's set in South Korea. And it's focused on two families, the Kim family and the Park family. So we start the movie by meeting the Kim family. So we have the dad, who I'm just going to be referring to as Mr. Kim. The mom, Mrs. Kim. We have the daughter, who I'm going to be calling Jessica. And the son, Kevin. So obviously they're very poor. They live in like a sub-basement apartment. So basically a basement apartment. And they're not employed. They fold pizza boxes to get whatever money they can, and their Wi-Fi and their phones are constantly getting cutting off, so they need to fold the pizza boxes to get Wi-Fi back. And we kind of just are introduced to their lifestyle, and we can see that they're just very poor. And they're also really like sneaky and like, I want to say like conniving. Yeah. They almost like get the pizza girl to give Kevin a job, but she's like, whoa, chill out. Like, she's like, calm down. Yeah, so they just live that lifestyle. And one day, Kevin's friend Min comes to visit, and he gives the family this thing called the Scholar's Rock. And it's like a rock that's supposed to be symbolic for money and fortune, so he gifts it to them. And you can honestly just see how poor they are, because the mom answers with like, well, why didn't you bring us food? You know, like, what are we supposed to do with this rock? But, yeah, and then Min and Kevin, they go out for drinks, and he tells Kevin that he is going abroad for school, and he needs someone to take over his tutoring job. So he tutors for a high school student of a very rich family, the Park family. And he says, I want you to take over. Kevin's like, well, I didn't go to college. Like, how am I supposed to do this? And he's like, no, like, you'll be fine. Just fake it. Like, you took the entrance exam, like, a bunch of times. You should be fine. So he's like, okay. I mean, whatever I can do to make some money, and like they pay really well apparently. So he goes to the interview, and he gets his sister Jessica to fake the college documents for him, because she's like really good at forging documents apparently. And they even say like, oh, why didn't you go, like, you could get into art school with this, you know? Yeah. Like
she's like a graphic designer. Yeah,
she has she's a lot of talent. It just shows like how unfortunate it is, just because like they have a lot of talent. It's just like they were put in such a bad situation that they can't afford to go to college or anything like that. And like just a side note too, like in South Korea, going to college is like a really big deal. It's like, you know, if you don't go to college, what are you even doing? You
also,
know?
It's like everyone takes one. So they have the equivalent of the SATs in the South Korea, but it's like on steroids. It's because a huge deal. It determines what type of school you can go to, period. And then that everyone will base that on like, that'll affect like who you can marry, basically, like where you can get a job, where you can live. Like, it's very like SATs. If you mess that up, like,
you'll be fine.
You'll be fine. It's not great,
but you need to pass the test to get into college, or else you just don't get it.
Yeah, like you can't do anything.
Yeah, so it's a big deal. So so anyways, Jessica's really good at art. She really wanted to go to art school, but she can't afford it. But she forged this document for him, and he brings it to the interview. And he gets to this house. And also another side note is, in like, just obviously to provide some context, because this is it's in South Korea, it's different culture, right? Yeah. They get to this house, and in South Korea, houses are very rare. Most people live in apartments. Even like rich people, like, apartments can go for millions of dollars. So the fact that these people have their own house and their own lawn means they're very, very rich. They got money. So he gets this big house, and we meet the Park family. So we meet the mom, who was just Mrs. Park, and the daughter, whose name is Dahi, and the son, Dasong, and also we meet the housekeeper of the family.
Oh, yeah, the lady.
The housekeeper. Oh, that housekeeper. So Kevin's having his interview with the mom, and she clearly is like very big on appearances. She wants to seem like she knows exactly what she's talking about, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna sit down on your interview, and like it's like a little test. So he goes to tutor Dahi, and he basically just bullshits this weird like speech about, oh, you need to pat this is what you do, you need to pass the test, whatever. And the mom's like, oh my god, this is amazing. So she hires him. Yeah. She's just a very naive lady. Like you can just tell. That's what Min told him in the beginning. He's like, no, she's very naive. Like, it should be fine. And then we meet also, like, that's when Dasong comes in, who's the little boy. He's like 10 years old.
So cute.
And he's like, basically he's pretty wild. He's like really crazy. He's like shooting bow and arrows at the housekeeper or whatever. And the mom starts telling him, yeah, he's like super wild, and he's also a painter. He likes to paint. And the mom is thinking like he's like some genius Picasso painter, whatever. And she's like, no, like he definitely has like some talent. And Kevin's like, oh yeah, like he's totally bullshitting it too. She's like, we have trouble keeping like an art teacher for him. And he's like, oh, actually I know someone who could be your art teacher. It's this girl, I don't know her name. She's from like, she went to Chicago for university, and now she's this renowned art teacher. And she's like, oh my god, tell me more. And then she's like, I can get you to meet her. Obviously he's just talking about his sister Jessica, but their plan is just to pretend to not be related, right? So then obviously Jessica comes in for the interview. She is like, puts on this whole different persona, and basically the mom is like, oh my god, this is amazing, hires her too, sorry. And so now the family's plan is like in place, so they're ready to all get hired and pretend to not be related so that they can all make money, because clearly this is a really well-paying job, and they're kind of taking advantage of the mom's naiveness, because she's like, oh, well, if you think he's good, then obviously they're gonna be good, and then it's just like a big chain, right?
She doesn't do her due diligence whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, yeah, one by one the family members start getting hired. So Jessica basically frames the driver, Mr. Park, sorry, wow, this is gonna be confusing. Mr. Park, who we also meet later. He's like the CEO of a big company, and he has like a personal driver and everything like that. So Jessica frames the driver for having sex in his car, and he gets fired. So then Mr. Kim gets hired as the driver,
which is Jessica's father.
Yeah, so they're all like the whole family. They're just trying to get in there. And then finally their last goal is to get the housekeeper out of there so that the mom can get hired. But the housekeeper actually has been at that house for years. Even before that the Park family moved in, she was the housekeeper for the architect who even built the house. So it's honestly like they say that it's basically like she owns the house. Like she sees that her position, she knows the house better than anyone. So they have to kind of find a different plan. So Dahi tells Kevin that she's really allergic to peaches. So they come up with this whole plan to use her peach allergy to make it seem like she has tuberculosis. And basically the mom, Mrs. Park, totally falls for it and has to fire the housekeeper, which is like kind of sad, honestly. Like you start feeling bad for her, because obviously the housekeeper didn't really do anything wrong.
I feel bad for like everyone.
Yeah, we'll get into that later. Yeah. You feel bad because it's like no one really did anything wrong. But this kind of when you start to realize, okay, this is like a little bit, it's taking it a bit too far. Like they literally are this, like it's sad like for everybody. So she gets fired and the mom gets hired. And
the mom, as in from the Kim family, gets hired.
So now the entire Kim family is hired.
Infiltrated the house.
They have successfully infiltrated the house, and the Park family does not know that they are all related. So this is kind of the end of, I would say, like the first act of the movie. Yeah. I would say this movie is pretty split into two very different parts.
Yeah. I think it's like 3 acts, but like act 2 and 3 are just completely,
different than the first act. So yeah, the first act kind of plays
different tone.
The first act kind of plays as this like heist type of movie, and you're kind of like thinking, ooh, who's next? Who's gonna get hired next? How are they gonna do it? Yeah, so now we see the whole family's hired. They're hiding the fact that they are all related, and they're making good money. I mean, the family pays well. So, in the meantime, Kevin has also started a relationship with Dahi, which is kind of weird because he is like very well over the age of college. Like I want to say maybe 23 or something like that, and she is a sophomore in high school. So she's like,
in high school, right?
She's like 16.
I didn't.
And it's funny because Min wanted him to tutor her because he's like, if I get one of my friends to tutor her, they're gonna be like drooling all over her. And obviously Min liked Dahi, and he's like, I'm gonna ask her out after she gets into college or whatever. And Kevin's like, okay, and then starts dating her.
Yeah.
So Dahi,
he low-key insulted him. He said, I know you wouldn't get her.
Yeah, he's like, no, like you wouldn't get her or whatever. But
such a dude thing.
Does he know? Yeah. So it's super weird. So anyways, now it's Dasong's birthday coming up, and the Park family is like, we are gonna go on a camping trip for his birthday. Also, I feel like this is important to mention, when Jessica was getting hired, she basically got hired because she convinced the mom, Mrs. Park, that Dasong has schizophrenia because of his painting. She's like, oh, I see this zone, this zone in his painting. It shows that he went through some kind of trauma. And she's like, oh my god.
How did you know?
She just always is like, oh my god. Like, she's always screaming. And she's like, oh my god, yes, he went through something traumatic when he was younger. But she didn't want to say what it was. So, now his birthday is like a big deal. Like, he went through something traumatic on his birthday. So they're like, we're gonna go on camping trip. So she's explaining to the mom, like to Mrs. Kim, what to do. This is how you keep track of our house, everything like that. So the Park family leaves, and the Kim family's like, party time. Like, they come in the house and they take baths and they're playing on the lawn, like basically trying to pretend that they live in the house. They're like, for that one little second, trying to see what it's like to live in a house like that. And then at night, they're all sitting around the coffee table. They have like all the alcohol all out in the open, bunch of snacks, everything like that.
Boozing, yeah.
They're just chilling. They're having a conversation. They're like saying, well, basically, Kevin's like, well, I'm gonna marry Dahi, and these are gonna be our in-laws or whatever. And then all of a sudden, there's a ring at the doorbell. Dun dun dun. Someone's at the door. And it's also, by the way, raining outside. It's like pouring rain. So Mrs. Kim, who is the only one who's technically supposed to be in the house right now, she goes to answer the door, and it's the old housekeeper. And she looks like she's been beaten up. She has like a bloody lip and like a black eye or something like that. And she's like looking all crazy outside. And she's like, I forgot something in the house. And then the Kim family are like, what do we do? What do we do? And she's like, okay, we have to let her in. So they let her in, and the rest of the Kim family hides. And
she said she forgot in the basement.
Yeah, she said, I left something in the basement. And she comes in, and the mom's like, okay, Mrs. Kim is like, okay, you can go get whatever you want. And then she's down there for a while, and the rest of the Kim family's like, hey, what is she doing? She needs to leave. And she goes downstairs and sees that Mrs. Kim's trying to push on this like cabinet, and it turns out that it's a secret door. So
secret door.
Yeah, so she opens the secret door, and it's like these stairs that lead down to like under the basement, and it turns out it's a bunker underneath the house. And she's going down the stairs, the housekeeper, and she's like, honey, where are you? And Mrs. Kim's like, what is going on? Like, she's like so confused. And then the Kim family's like following behind them, like eavesdropping. She gets downstairs, and it's a bunker that somebody is living in. There's a man down there.
So weird.
It's so weird. And there's a man down there living, and the housekeeper's like, oh my god, honey, I'm so sorry. And then she pulls out a baby bottle and starts feeding him.
Ew.
And she's like, I'm sorry, how long has it been?
He was drinking. Yeah, so disgusting.
She's like, how long has it been? It's been 4 days. And Mrs. Kim's there like, what the hell is going on right now? And then the housekeeper is like, okay, listen, I've been hiding my husband down here for the past 4 years. So even before the Park family moved in, when the house was in between owners, I got him down here because we are being chased by loan sharks. And they're threatening to kill him and stuff like that. So he's been hiding down here for 4 years. And she asked Mrs. Kim, please, like, can you just, like, when I got fired, like, I didn't have time to give him food, and like someone needs to give him food, so I will pay you this amount of money to give him food like once a week. Like, you just have to throw food down the stairs and that's it. Like, he won't bother you, whatever. Mrs. Kim's like, no, I'm calling the police. Like, this is crazy. But before she can do that, the rest of the Kim family, who's eavesdropping, of course, has to trip down the stairs, and they all fall down the stairs.
I want to beat them.
And then the housekeeper's like, what is going on here? Because like all she knows, because she saw all of them get hired, so she knows what they're all supposed to be doing. She knows that that's the driver, that's the art teacher, that's the tutor. She's like, what are you guys all doing here? And then like by accident, Kevin is like, oh my god, Dad, you're stepping on my foot. And then she's like, Dad? Oh my god, you guys are all related? I feel like I'm giving a dramatic reading right now. So she realizes they're all related and is like, oh hell no, I'm taking a video of this and I'm sending this to Mrs. Park. Y'all are all getting
She's
fired.
She's trying to get her receipts.
Yeah, so she takes a video and then she uses that kind of as like her holding them at gunpoint. So she's holding the...
Yeah, it's blackmail.
She's holding, like, she's about to send it to Mrs. Park and she's like, don't move, like, or else I'm pressing send. So she brings her husband upstairs. Basically now the Kim family is like their hostage. So they're like, come on, honey, we're gonna get some fresh air. So they go upstairs. They're basically holding the button, and the Kim family's just on the side, like, holding their arms up in the air, like, as hostages. And you can just see how weird the housekeeper and her husband are. Like, they're both kind of a little crazy. But
loopy.
A little loopy. And finally the Kim family's like, nah, we have enough of this. And then they start fighting them for the phone. And they're all, like, wrestling, trying to get this phone. And then they're, like, beating each other up. Jessica goes to the fridge and grabs a bag of peaches and then pours it on them. And then dumps them on the housekeeper. So she's like, ugh, and she starts, like whatever, having an allergic reaction. Yeah. And they, like, grab the husband. I'm just gonna call him Basement Man, I guess. They grab Basement Man.
He's scary. Yeah.
He's really creepy. Also, they grab Basement Man, but then all of a sudden, the phone rings. And on the phone is Mrs. Park, and she's like, hey, Mrs. Kim, can you cook us some noodles? We're gonna be back in 8 minutes. And they're like, what? 8 minutes? And so they're like rushing.
Yeah, because they got rained out from the
so it got rained out from the campsite. So they're like, yeah, we're gonna be home right now, so you have enough time to cook us this ramen. So they're like rushing to clean everything up, to get everything down. They grab the housekeeper and the husband, and they bring them down. The dad brings them both down, and they're all rushing to clean everything up that they did. And while they're down there, Mr. Kim sees that the basement man is like kind of worshiping Mr. Park, because he thinks that Mr. Park is like providing him with a house or whatever. So he controls the lights in the house to send him like Morse code messages. So he's like, oh well, Dasong is like a Boy Scout, he should know it, so one day they'll recognize that I'm sending a message, and then they'll know that I'm down here. I don't know what his goal was with that, but he basically worships Mr. Park. He keeps yelling out like, respect.
Yeah.
it's so weird. Like, he's kind of crazy. I mean, he's been down there for 4 years. So then the family comes home. The Kim family barely gets to hide. They're hiding under the coffee table, and then they finally get to escape. But before they escape, Mr. Kim overhears Mr. Park talking about how Mr. Kim smells bad.
But also you missed the part where the house lady tried to go up the stairs and
mom kicks her.
Yeah,
that's so important. So the housekeeper, right before the family is about to walk in, the housekeeper is like right up the stairs, and then Mrs. Kim kicks her ass down the stairs, and she falls and hits her head really, really hard.
She was also tied up, so it's like she was limited in terms of
she couldn't stop herself, so then she hits her head really hard on the back, and the dad has to like drag her back into the basement. So anyways, the family's like under the coffee table, and they're hearing Mr. and Mrs. Park talking, and then Mr. Park is like, yeah, I mean, I like the driver, but he kind of just like smells really bad. I don't know what it is. Like, he doesn't cross the line or anything, but he smells really bad. And Mr. Kim's kind of under there like, okay, what the fuck? He's like, okay, well.
Hearing the entire thing,
Yeah. So eventually they're able to escape. So Mr. Kim, Jessica, and Kevin escape because the housekeeper obviously has to stay there. And as they escape, the Mrs. Park starts talking to Mrs. Kim, and she's like, well, this is why we always, because Dasong has like a tantrum because they couldn't go camping, and she's like, yeah, well, his birthday's a big deal. We try to distract him because the trauma that he went through was on his birthday a couple years ago. He snuck downstairs to eat some cake, and he saw a ghost coming out of the basement, and he freaked out. He had a seizure, and we had to bring him to the hospital or whatever. Obviously, we realized that ghost was Basement Man.
That was the scariest thing I've ever seen.
Like, his little face was like coming up really slowly, and he was smiling. Oh, anyways,
and his eyes.
Oh, it was so creepy.
I can't.
It was super creepy. Like, obviously, we're looking at it. You don't actually. That's not what Basement Man looks like, but it's like obviously from a kid's perspective, that's what he saw. So he thought he saw a ghost, and he had a seizure, and like it was super big deal. Traumatized.
Me
so
too.
Like, oh, okay, so then the rest of the Kim family, meanwhile, they're trying to rush back home, and it's pouring rain, and they have to run all the way back home. And they get home, and they realize their house has been completely flooded, and they have to try to get everything out, and they get all their belongings out, and Kevin grabs the Scholar's Rock, and he's like, I feel like it's following me, because it just floats up at him. And they end up having to spend the night at a gym with, like, a bunch of other people, just sleeping on the floor, and Kevin is, like, asking his dad, like, yo, what's our plan? Like, what are we gonna do now? And the dad's like, no, I don't believe in plans, because plans always go wrong. So we're not gonna have a plan. We're just gonna go with it. So then the next day, it's like super sunny and nice outside. So Mrs. Park is like, oh my god, we're gonna have like a surprise birthday party for Dasong. And then they call the driver, and it's like, okay, I need you to help run errands. They call the art teacher, Jessica, and she's like, you're invited to the party. And obviously the mom, Mrs. Kim, has to help prep the party and everything. So they're like trying to find clothes to wear or whatever. And then Mr. Kim goes to run errands with Mrs. Park, and he's like clearly looking miserable. I mean, he just lost his house, like. And Mrs. Park is just on the phone with her friend saying like, oh my god, it's such a beautiful day, because air pollution's like really bad in Korea, so every time it rains, the next day like the air is like super good, like whatever. She's like, oh my god, like I'm so glad it rained, like it's so beautiful outside. And Mr. Park's sitting in the front seat of the car like, are you kidding me right now? Like
his house got flooded.
Yeah, rain for her.
I mean, she obviously doesn't know, but
yeah, like it just shows how oblivious she is. Like rain for rich people is like, oh, now it's a beautiful day, but rain for poor people is like, I just lost my whole house, like this just ruined everything. So that's just a little showing like how the divide between them. And then in the car, she pulls the window down and like gives him like a kind of disgusted look, and Mr. Kim sees that, and he's like, okay, like it's another thing of like, oh,
he doesn't smell good. But he also like think about, he didn't get to shower obviously because his house got flooded.
Of course, like that's what I'm saying. It's like they don't even realize why, but that like he just looks totally miserable in the front, like driving the car. So they spend the whole day preparing for the party, and Kevin decides, okay, I'm gonna go to the house and I'm gonna go in the basement and I'm gonna deal with the couple, because obviously the basement man and the housekeeper are still in the basement. So he brings the Scholar's Rock. So we're like, okay, he's probably gonna go and kill them. Like that's his goal.
Did you think that?
That's what he was trying to do. That's why he brought the rock.
Really?
He was ready to go and like kill them. I'm pretty sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I mean, I don't know what else he would want to do down there. Oh no, I don't know if he was gonna kill them.
Kill them.
He was
just
gonna
like knock
negotiate
them
with
up.
them.
Negotiate? Because he didn't say it like the way he. Jessica was like, "Oh, what's the plan? Let's go." Jessica was gonna go down there.
Yeah,
first.
Jessica was ready to go down there first, but then I think Kevin had his own little plan, and he was like, "I'm gonna go down there with the."
No, I thought the rock was just in case they attacked him. I didn't think he was actually gonna try to kill them.
Maybe that makes sense.
Because he would have just grabbed a knife. Why would he go with a rock?
It's symbolic. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah,
I think it was just for self-defense.
At one point, the mom, Mrs. Kim, is like telling Jessica, "Oh, bring down some food. Like that'll soften them up a little bit." Yeah. But anyway, so Kevin, for some reason, is going down there with a rock.
Dummy.
And he goes down there and he finds the housekeeper, and she has died, and the basement man has basically been forced to watch.
Yeah, which, by the way, just a little tiny throwback. When the housekeeper was there and she was like dying of her concussion, which she got from falling down the stairs, she kept repeating that Mrs. Kim was the one who killed her. Like, she kept saying to her husband, like, Mrs. Kim pushed me down the stairs. Yeah, and she made him repeat it back.
Yeah, she's like, repeat it to me, like, Mrs. Kim, like, you need to, like, this is the Kim family, like, you need to get them, like, whatever, stuff like that.
So, like,
and obviously they're already kind of, like, crazy, but yeah, so she dies from her injury. She had a really bad concussion, and obviously they're both down there tied up, and the basement man's tied to the wall, and he has to watch her. Really freaky. So Kevin goes down there and sees that she's dead, and he's like, oh, shoot, like, oh my god. And then all of a sudden, basement man grabs him by the neck with this, like, rope
string,
thing. Grabs him by the neck, drags him all over the basement. And then Kevin barely escapes. He grabs the rock and is like, or not grabs the rock. The rock fell down the stairs. But he's running up the stairs trying to escape. But then basement man grabs him back. And basement man takes the scholar's rock and absolutely destroys
bludgeons his head with
he throws it on Kevin's head twice really hard, and not even in the actual bunker, just in the regular basement that anyone can go into. It's like up the bunker stairs, whatever.
Oh shoot, he just, you're right.
And then Kevin's like bleeding from his head. While this is all happening, the party's getting set up and everything, and Jessica's there. The mom is like, Mrs. Park is like, okay, you're gonna bring out the cake. There's a little skit we're gonna do. You're gonna bring out the cake, and then Mr. Kim and Mr. Park are like dressed up in this Native American like thing, because that song loves like Native American stuff, and they're like, we're gonna do this big skit where we pretend to steal the cake with our fake axes, and then that song has to come and save us or whatever. So they're ready to do that, and Jessica has the cake in her hand, ready to say happy birthday, and like, happy birthday, Da Song, oh my god, all the guests are like cheering, and then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, basement man has like blood all over his face. And
ew, from knocking
on the lights, because he's literally crazy. He has like his hands tied up, and he still has to like light the lights up for Mr. Park because he worshipped him. So he has blood all over his face. He goes up the stairs, grabs a knife, like casually just walks into the party and stabs Jessica in the chest right away. And then Mrs. Kim. Oh, I'm getting so confused. Mrs. Kim, the mom, Jessica's mom, is like, oh my god, so she starts fighting the basement man. She's like, what have you done? Like, whatever.
Hey guys, unfortunately we experienced some technical difficulties, so the audio was cut, so I'm just going to continue with the recap. Essentially, Mrs. Kim and the basement guy got into a scuffle, and Mrs. Kim managed to stab him with a meat skewer, and he dies instantly. And while Mr. Basement Man was able to stab Jessica, Da Song experienced a trauma-induced seizure, and they only had about 15 minutes to get into the hospital before he could possibly die. So Mr. Park kept screaming at Mr. Kim to toss him the keys so they could go to the hospital. But Mr. Kim is obviously in shock because his daughter is essentially dying on the floor. But Mr. Park is not aware that Jessica is his daughter and insists that he sends him the keys. Mr. Kim throws the keys at Mr. Park, but they fall under the basement guy's corpse. So Mr. Park has to go under the basement guy's corpse and grab the keys. And while he's grabbing the keys, he pinches his nose because of the foul smell. And that just sets off something in Mr. Kim. So he picks up an axe, one of the axes that was there for the skit, and stabs Mr. Park right in the chest, and he dies instantly. Then Mrs. Park faints because of the whole ordeal, but they managed to drag her out, and they managed to escape and everything. Mr. Kim immediately runs away after he commits the murderous act. So then we come back later to Kevin waking up in the hospital. So his girlfriend was able to go down in the basement and retrieve him, and he's experienced a lot of brain damage, so he can't do anything but laugh. And it's later revealed that Jessica passed away from her injuries, and even at her makeshift funeral, the mother is crying, but Kevin is just laughing because clearly he's induced a lot of trauma from the head injuries that he received. Then they go through trial and they're put on probation for fraud and trespassing, but the media and the police aren't able to find the motives of the homeless man. Well, they think that the basement guy is a homeless man, and they're unable to find his motives for killing, so essentially it becomes a cold case and they drop it. And after the police and the media drops the case, Kevin ends up going back to the house and notices that the lights are flickering, similarly to how they would when the basement guy was there and he was using Morse code. So he's able to depict the Morse code and find out that he's being sent a message. And from there, we can resume back to the regular recap.
It's a letter from his dad, Mr. Kim, who is now living in the bunker. Because when he escaped from the backyard party, he was able to go and sneak back into the house and sneak back into the bunker. Because obviously where else, nobody would look there because everyone who knew about the bunker is either dead or his family. So no one's gonna know. And so the dad sent a letter to his son basically saying, like, I risk my life every day now to go
through
get food.
Morse code, right?
Yeah, all through Morse code. You have to send this really long letter. And he's like, I'm gonna live down here. Like, I have faith in you, whatever. And then Kevin decides to write him a letter back. How is he gonna send this letter? I don't know. He just writes a letter. And he's like, Dad, like, don't worry. I'm gonna get you out of there. I'm gonna make enough money one day. And I'm going to get so rich that I'm gonna buy the house. And then you can come out of the basement and meet us there. So we see Kevin. He has this, like, a really fancy suit on. He's with the real estate agents. He's buying the house. He finally gets in the house and Mr. Kim comes up the stairs and they hug, but it's all just like an imagination. Yeah. So we get back to Kevin writing the letter and he's like, yeah, like, I hope you're doing okay. Love, Kevin. Whatever. And that's the end of the movie, pretty much. Dun, dun, dun. That's the best way I can explain it, honestly.
Yeah, you did good.
There's so many little details. Like, this thing with this movie is, like, every little detail is so important to the themes, to the plot, everything like that. Yeah. But yeah.
Okay, so now we're gonna get into things we like and things we didn't like. Stu, I guess should I name all of my stuff I don't like and didn't like, and then you should name all the stuff?
Yeah, sure. I feel like I did a lot of talking.
Yeah. Oh yeah, true, you get a break. So things I liked. The humor, I did enjoy that.
Yeah, because the first part of the movie is actually pretty funny. Like, I remember when I watched it in theaters, like, everyone was laughing.
Yeah. I really liked when Jessica put her cigarette, like, ashes or the butt of the cigarette in the coffee drink of that lady who told her to stop smoking.
Yeah, when she was forging the document.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny. Like, she's like, yeah, I'll do it. And then she's like, it just shows how low-key trash they are. So.
Also, like, building on that, there's another really, like, iconic scene, I think, when their house is getting flooded and she climbs up onto the toilet, because the toilet is above ground level, kind of, and she climbs up onto the toilet, which is, like, sputtering, like, sewer water. Yeah. And she just, like, pulls out a cigarette and starts smoking it.
Which some people are like, oh, that scene was breathtaking. And I was like, what? Like, I mean, it's cool, but it's just like,
yeah, there's like a moment, because obviously they're freaking out, they're losing their house, and she's like, let me just sit here for a second
be calm,
and take a smoke.
Okay, and then I liked the entire third act. Like, the third act to me would be the part where, like,
the day of the party, probably.
The day of the party, like, from where the whole murder stuff is happening, basically. From the day of Da Song's birthday party in the back, that was my favorite part, I think. The third act really solidified, I think, for me. The ways they use sound, I really liked. So, like, for parts where they wanted them to be, like, in real life, if someone was crawling through a house, you would hear it. Like, it would be a little bit, but they would emit complete sound whenever the family was, like, sneaking away. They would just have, like, no sound at all, which is pretty rare for movies. Like, usually they always have music or, like, some kind of, like, I don't know, but they use, like, silence, and I was like, oh, it was, like, pretty cool. So the way they were using sound, they were just really dynamic with it. I think that was good. I like the ending a lot. I like ambiguous endings.
I was gonna say I love ambiguous endings.
They piss me off, but I like them. Like it's like
any ending where it's like you have to think about it for like a minute. Like you have to just sit there for 10 minutes and be like, what? Like, I love those types of movies.
love those endings. So those are good. And I think it's really easy to villainize rich people. Mm-hmm. But I think it did a good job of not falling into the Robin Hood effect, which I call it that. Robin Hood effect is like where you pity the poor people so much that you allow them to do questionable things to people, and then you're just like, you know what, it's justified because you feel so bad for them. So they didn't fall into that at all.
That was Bong Joon-ho's goal with this movie, was to show that like
everyone can be a villain.
Everyone can be the villain, and like just because they're poor doesn't mean they're doing bad things, and just because they're rich doesn't mean they always do good things, and vice versa. Yeah, like, you want to believe that the rich people are evil, but at the end of the day, they're really not. Like what happened to them is pretty messed up. They were just like a naive rich family. Like you know what I mean? Like obviously they did and said questionable things, but like also the poor family was sabotaging this whole family.
I kind of put myself in their shoes, and I'm like, if I'm having a conversation with my significant other and like I'm just telling them like someone kind of smells bad, like that's not a weird conversation to have. Like people stink sometimes. Like I'm like, yo, I'm sorry. Like and smell to me personally too is a big thing. So like when someone stinks, it like bothers me. Yeah,
it's just like
but it's like Mr. a privilege thing.
Mr. Park had mentioned a couple times the idea of like crossing the line, like how it was like no matter. I felt like Mr. Kim was looking at it as like no matter what, there's always a line dividing them. You know what I mean? So it's not like a good or bad thing. It's just like that's just the reality of class and stuff like that. But
okay, so I'm gonna talk about things I didn't like. I think the violence was questionable. That's what I said. Which is also, that's not the movie's fault. I think that's all movies. I think they always overplay how much someone's injured and then they die for it, and then underplay some other injuries. So that's
true. Like I'm surprised Jessica died, but Kevin didn't.
I thought Kevin was dead. Like I thought
he was dead.
And like they were like, oh, he's fine. I'm like, the guy bludgeoned him with a rock and then hit him again. Like if he only hit him once to make him pass out, like I could have kind of like But like I thought it was weird, and also I'm like, so Kevin can survive like head trauma injury thing, but Mr. Park is dead after being like in the chest. Like in theory, he probably. I mean,
Mr. Park probably could have survived.
He definitely could have. He probably was alive.
Like Jessica, I kind of understand because she was sitting there for a while. She lost a lot of blood. But Mr. Park, I feel like they could have gotten him super quick. I don't know how the ambulances work in Korea. So because they were clearly like they were ready to drive Dasong to the hospital. They didn't want to get an ambulance. I don't think they had time. So, I mean, I guess.
So I'm just saying,
But then again, I've never been stabbed with an axe.
No,
before,
exactly.
So
but I just felt like all the different injuries were like, like how come this person survived but then other person didn't? Like I felt like it was a little inconsistent with that. That's true. But again, I'm not a doctor.
That's what I was gonna say. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. Because the basement man like died pretty instantly after.
Basement girl, you mean?
Basement man.
Oh God! After he got skewered.
After he got skewered, even though he got skewered like in the side, he died like pretty much right away.
Facts, right? Like that wouldn't. Like
unless she hit like a major artery right away or like.
But it would still be a lot of like squirming. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think the problem is movies in general have totally skewed my idea of how easily people can die or not. Because in movies, maybe
if you do get skewered in the side, you die right away.
Yeah, because like in some movies, guys get shot like 5 times and they're still talking. Like they're like,
I think that's how it is in real life. I feel like people in real life get shot
and then they still be running. So
I feel like if you don't get shot in like something vital. Because it's all your body's reaction, like, sometimes some people, like, they get shot once and then they faint right away, like, they pass out. Yeah. Other people can, like, just stay conscious.
I have no idea.
Anyways, we're
I'm thankful I don't know too much about it.
I don't need to know about that.
Because it's sad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But,
here is, I think the biggest downfall for the movie, for me at least, was I felt like the beginning was a little slow, only because I kind of wish the schemes were more elaborate. Is that like weird?
I guess,
Like I really liked the peach one. That was the best.
That was gonna be one of my favorite parts.
But the driver one was kind of like a little like.
Really, I love the way that the driver. It was so funny to me.
Because it was, but I feel like the conversation there. Maybe it's like a cultural thing too. Because I'm like because in my mind I'd be like, oh, like, just tell him not to have sex in your car.
Oh, no, it's definitely a cultural thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a cultural thing.
I was gonna say.
Because I'm like, oh.
I just love when, like, the husband is, like, telling the wife, like, oh, like, well, why would you forget your underwear? Like, only one type of person can forget the underwear. She's like, cocaine or meth? Oh my god.
Yeah. Like
also drugs in Korea are like a big deal. Like drugs are a big no. Like if you do drugs,
I know
like,
that.
You're terrible.
Oh
person.
Yeah, but that's like basically any Asian country.
Yeah,
do drugs.
But I just thought it was so funny how they're like basically like trying to connect all the dots. Like,
yeah,
it was just hilarious.
I thought it was okay, but like I felt like I guess where I thought it sucked too is also after they got into the house. It was just kind of like they're in the house, right? Like I really thought the way they kept showing them like in the cafeteria, like there was a scene in the cafeteria where they're like, oh, they're dumb, like we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. It kind of gave me the impression that they were gonna do even more. Like I thought they were gonna be stealing from the family or doing something a little bit.
That's the thing with this movie where it's like you don't know where it's gonna go because once they all get into the house, you're kind of like you have this moment where you're like, okay, what now?
Yeah, like literally, I'm not gonna lie, when they got into the house. I literally checked the time and I was like, huh? Like, I was like, why?
That's exactly what... Yeah. And that's funny because that's exactly what Bong Joon was going for. He was going for kind of like a whole story arc in the first half where at the end you're kind of like, okay, like, what's going to happen now? Like, and then exactly what you don't expect to happen is what happens.
So I feel like I needed a little more convincing that this was the story at the beginning to like make me get twisted at the next part. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like if they had really gone for like, this is a heist movie, like this is a heist movie, like you think this is what it's gonna be, and then they were like, haha, like gotcha, like switched it. Still a good job, but I felt like the beginning was kind of slow to me. I was like, oh, like,
interesting.
Like what are they doing? But whatever. Also, I think this is just like a learning thing. This is the last thing I didn't like. There's not a lot of things, but I think there's like, with foreign films, there's always going to be nuances or language barrier things that I don't understand. Because there were a couple things where I'm like, I think that I'm supposed to think this is funny or I'm supposed to get this, but I didn't understand. Like, specifically, maybe you can explain it to me because like I
know a lot about the movie. So
I felt kind of dumb watching the movie a little bit because I was like, is this like a metaphor?
You have to like watch it, and then you have to watch like all the analysis videos on YouTube and stuff like that.
I tried to do that because I was like, bro, I feel stupid because I didn't get like a couple scenes.
Wait, which one are you talking about?
Specifically, I only wrote two because the first one was, I don't understand why Mr. Kim kept insisting on asking Mr. Park if he loved his wife. That happened like 3 times in the movie, and the last time he did it, I know every time he did it, Mr. Park was looking at him like sideways, like don't cross me almost. And then the last time it happened, he was like, "You're getting paid to do this, like it's fine." Which I was like, "What?" Like I didn't understand.
I think he was like trying to get in his head a little bit. I don't think this is a cultural thing. I think it's more like Mr. Kim is like so baffled that like they can have a good relationship. Because the husband and wife of the rich family, like, they had a good relationship. Like, they were fine. Like, you know, you think with rich families, like, the dad's always, like, super working.
I know, they're actually
doesn't really care about the mom. Like, no, they're like,
they're actually really nice parents, too. They'd be, like, staying out for Dasong to do
they were a super cute family. And, like, I think he's trying to get in his head, like, he probably has this idea of rich people where it's, like,
like, you're cheating on your wife. Yeah,
so he's trying to, like, get in his head a little bit and figure out, like, you know, why are you doing all this? Like, even, like, when the part where he's, like, you're getting paid to do this. Well, that was more because he was just super miserable that day, and then Mr. Park could tell, and he's like, just so you know, like, I'm paying you overtime to do this. Yeah. But I think with the whole, oh, you really love your wife kind of thing, like, he was just kind of surprised, I think, of, like, the fact that they had
because he kept, like, asking him, and then
he was like, you love your wife, right? And he's like, yeah. Like, what?
He's like, or he would, like, laugh at that. So I was like, is that, like, a rich South Korean thing where they don't love their wives or something?
I think that's just in general, like, it's just, like, a stereotype, I think, where...
Yeah. I just thought it was a little weird without context. Like, they kind of didn't give context to that, so that weirded me out.
What's the other one?
And the other one was when she said, buy me drugs, I was like, what? She was pretending, I think I get it now that you said the whole, because, you know, during the masturbation scene, if you will, or the sex scene, whatever you want to call it, she was like, buy me drugs. I think she's talking about,
I think they were trying to be kinky. Like, I think they were finding,
because she was like, he was like, oh, I would really like if you wore the underwear, and then she's like, ooh, buy me drugs. So she's talking about the drugs.
No, they were just being kinky. That was just.
So I was like, huh? I guess I just missed that. But
no, they were like, because before when they were talking about it, it as such a gross thing. Yeah. And like they were being kinky with it. Like,
okay.
Like they were literally just like, I don't know. There's no way to explain.
It's like foreplay, I guess.
Like, without being super inappropriate, but they basically she was like, you're filthy, like,
I'm your filthy.
Like,
oh, okay.
They basically, it was just a kinky thing.
I get it, because I was like, what? I was like, is this
that scene was kind of like, you kind of felt like you were in the Kim's position in that scene because they were under the coffee table listening to them having sex.
Yeah.
So you kind of felt like that too because it's like, oh, I shouldn't be watching this or listening to this. You know what I mean? But,
yeah, it was that like little things. Those were the two that stuck out to me. But there were a lot of things where I shouldn't say that's not a thing I didn't like. It's just a part. Well, I didn't like about myself not being able to relate.
Like, there's so many things in this movie that you don't even realize, like, is, like, a Korean culture thing.
Yeah.
Like, even the whole thing about the ramen. Like, the reason I mentioned it, because the ramen's such a big deal. The ramen dish that the housekeeper, or the mom, had to make for them when they came home already has so much symbolism behind it because... Like, I'll just go into this for a second, but if you don't know already, the story behind this is the rich family asked Mrs. Kim to make them this dish that's called, well, in the English subtitles, they call it ramdon. But the Korean word for it is chapaguri, which is, like, a mashup of two different ramen, like, popular instant ramens. There's one called chapageti and one called noguri, and they mix it together. And basically, it's just, like, this dish. Like, it's kind of like crab dinner. Yeah, it's kind of like the equivalent of, like, just making crab dinner. Or, like, mixing Annie's whatever craft dinner with, like, the regular KG.
Oh, true.
Kind of like that thing. It's just mixing two ramens together. Yeah. And she's like, oh, well, yeah, there's also some, like, some steak in the fridge. Just throw that in there. And the steak that she uses is, like, it's, like, the equivalent of, like, Kobe beef. It's, like, super expensive steak. But she's like, yeah, just toss it in there. So it's, like, imagine if you're a housekeeper and they're like, oh, I kind of feel like craft dinner. There's some, like, foie gras in the fridge. Just, like, toss that in there, too. Like, it's,
some
like...
truffle.
Yeah, it just shows that, like... The mom can't even handle her son eating something so cheap, so she's like, no, toss some, like, super expensive fancy beef in there too, you know what I mean? So it's like it's a show of, like, the class thing and, like, how they can just use this expensive beef for something, like, dish so, like, cheap. But anyways,
so yeah, that's
there's
my
so much
things
of, like, tidbits like that.
Yeah.
I could go in forever about that, but for me, I guess I can start with, like, things I didn't like. I guess honestly, like I said before, this is my favorite movie ever. I think it's, like, amazing. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head.
No, I get
honestly.
it. It's hard to dissect.
It's so hard
because
it's like
movie.
Anything you don't like. It's like I've seen this movie I think like 4 or 5 times already, so I definitely am biased, I guess. But like, I don't think there's anything specifically I don't like. I wish they kind of went into Basement Man's like backstory, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah. Like, I feel like a flashback wouldn't have been the worst. Like,
yeah, like I get why they wouldn't. It's not the type of movie where it's like very in the moment kind of movie. That's true. But I kind of wish
like
they showed us a bit more
storytelling.
Detail about the, because kind of how they did the storytelling with how Da-sung got his trauma. I kind of wish they did something similar to that. But other than that, I want to say I can't think of anything that I didn't like.
Yeah, because they did a flashback scene for Da-sung, and that was good.
Yeah.
Or it was a storytelling, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I feel like they could have done that for what's his face.
Just in general, like mainly it just comes from me. Like I just want to know more about the story. Like it's not even a bad thing.
Were they alluding to the fact that the cleaning lady was getting beat up by the loan sharks? Is that what it was?
Yeah. See, I think that's kind of. I wish they kind of went into more information. Like I kind of just wanted to know more about the couple, but that's kind of the point where it's like you don't even know them that well. They just kind of come in and ruin the whole dynamic. But things I did like. Okay, if I have to narrow it down, first things I loved the peach scene where they like the one we're talking about.
Or were they convinced that they had tuberculosis? Yeah, were they convinced and the music with that was so good.
To say, so I watched a video by this really good YouTuber. His name's like Nerd Writer, and he does a lot of like video essays on YouTube about movies.
Oh, cool!
And that whole like it's like montage. It's like exactly 5 minutes long, and it's 60 shots.
Yes.
And how it's like they tell a whole narrative just in those 60 shots, and they put that like this classical music. I don't know the name of the piece in the background. And it's like it's almost like a choreography how the whole like scene plays out, like with the cinematography and everything like that, and how like there's shots that like parallel each other. Like there's a part in the beginning where they're squeezing hot sauce on the pizza.
Yes.
And then at the end of the montage, they're squeezing the hot sauce on the tissue paper to mimic the blood.
Yeah.
And those scenes like parallel each other, just things like that. Like that whole montage is so interesting to watch with like this really like grand like classical piece in the background, and they're
I liked it a lot.
I love that scene, and like the little part where they're sprinkling the peach fuzz on her. I just that scene is like just like it's a masterpiece to me. Another thing I really liked again is just like this is like pretty basic, but the twist in general. Like it's just like the point where you're like, I don't know where this is gonna go. Like, I feel like the end of the movie right now, but then like it just completely flips on you. The whole like mood of the movie just changes. I remember in the theaters, like everyone was just laughing the whole first half. I was like, oh, this is so funny, like little jokes and stuff like that. And then it was just silent for like the last half of the movie. Like everyone's like, what is going on? But yeah, I think in general, like after watching so many videos just about the cinematography, I just like. There's so many things you don't even notice. Like little things where like they use like a line to separate the rich and the poor people. So like for example, there's this one scene where Kevin's looking out the window to the housekeeper and Mrs. Park, and there's like a line on the window panels that separates Mrs. Park from the housekeeper and Kevin. Just in the way they angled the shot to show that there's like a line, like a dividing line.
Yes.
And then that line doesn't get crossed until Kevin gets hired, where they move the camera so that it looks like this line on the wall moves past him, and now they're on the same side.
Whoa, that's super
interesting. Like, I recommend just looking up like video analysis of this movie on YouTube, because you learn so many things that you didn't even notice, and then you notice them the next time you watch it, and you're like, oh my god, this is genius. But yeah, I could go on and on about how many things I liked about this movie. It's my favorite movie. Yeah. Well, the dialogue is like super witty. The acting is so amazing. Oh yeah,
the mom, she's actually in one of my favorite K-dramas. She's a really good comedic actress. Like, so that's why I like really liked her in that movie too. Like, she fits it. Like, it was good casting because I've seen her work before. So
the whole cast in general, I think, was like amazing. They did a really good job. But yeah, again, I
like Jessica the best. She was the best character to me.
Yeah, she was my favorite character. Like, she's just so witty, and like you could tell she was kind of different from the rest of her family. Like, they even said it. They're like, Kevin told her, like, when I saw you in the bathtub, because she was just chilling in the bathtub, like this huge bubble bath, watching TV.
Oh, it looks like you belong there.
Yeah, the brother's like, you kind of look like you really belong here.
Yeah, she's ruthless like a businessman. Like, that's her whole personality.
Sure. So yeah, no, honestly, this movie is just like so amazing. If you're at this point and you haven't watched it, like, just go watch it. It's so like honestly, to me, when it won Best Picture at the Oscars, felt so satisfying, because it's like, I know, like, I don't know if it was 2 years ago when Moonlight won, that one was well deserved, but I think in general it's kind of like always debatable. Like, there's always a lot of good movies in the running.
Yeah.
But this one felt so deserved. It was like, this truly was the best, in my opinion at least, and a lot of people's opinions, it truly was the best movie of the year.
Yeah.
Arguably the best movie of the decade, even though it was released in like 2019. But I just felt so satisfied, because it was like, I'm glad also they gave the chance to a foreign movie to win Best Picture, but it was like, really objectively,
it's the first one, right? Yeah, that's pretty good.
So it's like, objectively, it was the best movie of the year. It just felt so nice to watch. Like, I felt like I won. I was like, oh my god. Like, I was watching it, I was like, ah!
You're like holding your own. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god. Like, it was like, it was so good to watch. I wish the actors had gotten recognition by the Oscars, but that's okay. Like, they didn't get any acting nominations.
Oh, was that Golden Globes then?
That was the SAG Awards. They won Best
Cast. Okay, got it.
But they definitely deserve some acting nominations. That's a different conversation, but
yeah.
What a great movie. I just love it.
Now,
question time.
Oh yeah, you have a question for me or whatever.
I have a question for you. It's probably not as fun as the one that you pulled out for To All the Boys. We already went through my first option for a question, which was like, who do you think is the villain? Like, is there...
Oh, that's good.
Is there really a protagonist and an antagonist in this movie?
There are no protagonists, I'll tell you that for sure.
I want to, like, argue a little bit and say probably the Kim family would be the quote-unquote protagonist, just because they're the main focus of the movie.
I think...
But there's definitely no antagonist.
There's no...
In my opinion.
Oh yeah, they're protagonists because it's from their point of view. That's where you start. I guess if you're, like, talking in an English sense... But in the traditional movie sense, I think they're not the... I guess they're not the traditional protagonists. They're still protagonists, yeah.
It's like they're the anti-heroes a little
yes.
bit. But I don't think...
But they're not even... They're just anti. Like, because, you know, usually anti-hero, it usually ends well for the anti-hero. And I think that's the point of the whole anti-hero part. Is like
anti-hero would be like the Joker.
The Joker, Arrow, How to Get Away with Murder.
Yeah.
Things like that.
But even then, it's like, what they're doing can kind of be justified, but also not really. Where it's like, okay, I get it, you're poor, you want to get money, but also you don't have to ruin people's lives.
I don't know, I felt like such a brat, because the entire time I was like, why are they doing all this to the rich people? That was my thought, and I was like, but then again, am I a rich loser?
Either, because it's like, you know, but then, I don't think there's really an antagonist, because you want to first think, oh, it's the basement man. And the housekeeper, like the couple.
But they killed his wife, so.
But the Kims killed them, even though they didn't really deserve it. Cause
is Kevin a villain for preying on little young girl?
That's also yeah, that's different. I'm surprised they haven't.
And Kevin is also the reason that they got black dance.
Like, I know. In Korea, I'm pretty sure like big age gaps are pretty like normal.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that.
I don't know what the age of consent is there. Don't get me wrong. I know if that happened
I guess
country,
that's us Americanizing this.
I don't know. I actually don't know what the age of consent is. It might be like 16 for all I know, and that's totally legal. But I just know.
No, but even us, it's 16 here too. But it has to be no more than 5 years. Yeah,
but definitely they're more than 5 years. But I'm pretty sure, like from what I think I know, I could be totally wrong.
Maybe he's like. How do you know He could be like 21 though. No,
I don't because he's just
not in college.
Because he said he failed the college entrance exam like 3 or 4 times, and I'm pretty sure you have to do it every year. It only
but you start when you're 18. He takes it,
and he went to the military already because in South Korea they have to do mandatory military service, and he already went to the military, and that's 2 years. So he's definitely like older.
Okay.
So yeah.
I guess I'm gonna try to take my not American but North American lens off, and
that's what it's interesting. Because, like, there's so many cultural things you don't even realize. Like, I already said this, but that was going to get into my next question because we already touched on the first question. But my next question is, so do you think the ending could be interpreted as that's, like, what's going to happen? Or, like, do you think it's possible? Or do you think that's just kind of, like, I don't know. Just what's your interpretation of the ending? I guess I'll start it like that.
I think it's impossible. I don't think he's ever going to get to it. And I think he's showing reality. Like, people have goals of things. I think he's low-key, it's the dying dreams of the poor, if you will. Like, a lot of poor people, I don't like saying that. A lot of poor people, a lot of people who don't have the monetary means to do what they want to do have nothing but their dreams and their aspirations to hang on to. And it's a sad reality.
And you can look at it too, where it's like there was somebody living in the bunker, and then all that happened was he just got replaced with something else.
And I think
so it's like this endless cycle.
I think Parasite's title is the best, actually. Like, it's named for
my follow-up question where it's like, who is the parasite?
It's I think it was the basement guy, and he kind of infiltrated. Because I feel
basement, but look at this. The basement guy is the parasite because he's in the basement and he's basically leeching off the Kim family is the parasite because they infiltrated as jobs. Yes. But also you can kind of look at it as the rich people are extracting the value and what am I looking for? The labor of the poor people.
But they're getting paid, so
it's kind of like
I felt
figure out the words for it, but
I felt like Basement Man is the parasite, the first one, right? And I think of it in a different way. Sorry, if you heard that, sorry about that.
Just whacked your mic.
I know. I think Basement Guy is a parasite. I know they're the parasite for coming in
like that, but I think the whole point is like you look at him and you're like, oh, that's the parasite. But then if you think about it more, it's like, well, I think also kind of.
I think Basement Guy was the parasite to Mr. Kim. Because I think Mr. Kim was going along with the plan, and I'm saying that in quotation marks because there's not really a plan. He was going along with the plan. They were all like, this is going to be good for us. We're going to get out of our rut. But I think Mr. Kim, low-key saw himself reflected in Basement Guy. Like, he was like, this guy is weird, but... And he worships Mr. Park. So he's like, this guy's weird. Like, what the heck is he doing, right? But then I think after meeting Basement Guy, he slowly starts noticing more stuff.
You can tell his mood kind of changes. He's like, he starts like kind of...
And he starts getting a little pissed off, like, how come... Like, I think he's like, yo, low-key, these rich people see me the way I see this guy. I think this guy's low-key scum of the earth, low-key like a loser. But they see me and they're like... He's a loser, he stinks, you know? So that's why everything bothers him so much, you know? And, because at first I was like, oh, why did he kill Mr. Park? Like, I was like, what the heck? Like, where did this come from? But then, like, I had to think about it, sleep on it. Yeah. And I was like, it was actually an accumulation of, like, of him not being able to provide for his daughter, who's, like, literally dying on the floor. Yeah.
And,
him
like,
seeing his son,
daughter, and his daughter's there dying on the floor, but Mr. Park's, like, only
like concentrating on his kid.
No, I need the keys. Give him.
I know,
but
which
like,
is not
this girl's bleeding.
Yeah, which is not crime because
like,
it's like everyone would do the same for their own family. Like they'd be like, "Hey,"
but it's just when you add all of it together, it's kind of like,
he's like a culmination of like this loser too. By the way, is the reason that my daughter's dying. Like this guy that I look frown upon, and he's like, I think he wanted to parallel a little bit, like since this guy, this like scum of the earth basement parasite guy, is the reason that my life is kind of about to be ruined right now. Maybe I can kind of give the same thing to Mr. Park. Like, it's like, this guy's ruining my life.
The parasite guy just ruined my life by killing my daughter, so I'm gonna go and ruin Mr. Park's life.
So, that's the way I saw it in terms of Parasite. Yeah. But I do see, like,
it's all just so debatable.
Yeah,
it's like so open to interpretation.
It is. But I thought the title was perfect.
I wish I could find like the right words, but I definitely saw someone explain how they can all be the parasite. I just can't figure out how to explain it for the rich family. I think it was something like how in general, like if you look at rich people, how they I guess you could take the example of like Jeff Bezos, Amazon CEO. Like if you go all the way to the bottom, like the minimum wage workers, it's like he's exploiting those minimum wage workers to make himself richer.
Yes.
So that's kind of how you can look at the whole Parasite thing too, where it's like if you look at the rich in general, it's like they're preying on like the poor people to make them more money.
That's true.
So that's kind of what a parasite does. They take the resources, quote unquote resources of something else to make themselves, to benefit themselves.
Yes.
And that's kind of what they're doing too.
Yeah. But, okay. I think we should get into like what we think the grade. Yeah. So do you want to go first? Because like yours is pretty obvious.
I hate. If I was a teacher, I would be that teacher that never gives people 100 because it's like nothing's perfect. Yes, whatever. Yeah. I'm just that kind of person where it's like, oh, what if something's better? But genuinely, I cannot imagine giving this movie less than an A+. Mm-hmm. Like it's just like, especially when you watch it and get into all the like analysis and like you really realize how much effort. Like I even read the whole screenplay for this movie. Actually, I didn't mention this, but it's actually like it was really interesting to read. Mm-hmm. And it's just like the amount of thought that goes into this, and like the fact that it's so enjoyable. So rewatchable. I've watched it multiple times with multiple different people at this point. I cannot see myself giving it less than A+. Like I think it deserves an A+.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The difference between an A and an A+ is all subjective at that point. I would say.
Like I'm not saying A+ as in like 100 out of 100. Like I agree that like the Rotten Tomato score for this is 99%, which is pretty accurate to me. No movie's perfect. So 99% seems pretty. If this was a test and I was a teacher, I'd give it 99 out of 100. Yeah. I think. So yeah, that's my grade. Go watch it. It's so good.
I'm not a teacher. So I think this is where Monica and I's friendship ends, but it's okay. We'll try it. We'll try it. Okay. I'm going to go through the journey that I went through when grading this thing, right? Oh my God. It's like when you grade, it's like how teachers, they'll grade one page at a time because they're like, I must be unbiased when I try to do this. Okay.
Just get on with it.
When I came out of the movie, and by came out, I mean
let me just preface this by saying like I probably hyped this too much for you. I feel like I might have ruined it a bit.
A little bit, but not. No. I tried to. Okay. You're gonna scream. When I came out of the movie,
I'm just gonna accept it at this point.
When I came out of the movie, I was gonna give it, and I acknowledge that this is completely wrong.
Okay.
I was gonna give it a B+.
Okay.
Because I was like, I didn't get it. Yeah. That's literally it. Yeah, like I was like, I didn't get it, right? But then I slept on it because I was like, what the heck? Like, I think third act is so mind-boggling that I'm like, what just happened?
Literally, like I said, there's so many details that like you have to think about and be like, oh my God, that relates to that.
And I kind of it was my fault. Oh, by the way, I also believe that you should always watch a movie twice before really giving it.
Exactly.
So I only watched it once, so I also went to sleep knowing that like I needed to like evaluate it properly. So I would have gave it a B+ just coming out of the theater, right?
Right.
In theory. But also I was watching at like 9 p.m. at night, and then I finished at like 11 or something, right? It's like 2.5 hours or whatever. So I was like, I'm tired, like let me go to bed, right? And then I woke up and I was like, because the third act was so mind-boggling, I was like, what the heck? I woke up being like, what the heck? The third act was the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
Like it's like like any movie that makes you think about it after watching it, I feel like automatically is like that. That's a good movie.
So, my final grade for the movie. Okay, so before I took my shower, I was gonna give it an A-.
Okay,
because I was like, like
it's marinating a little.
It's good. Final grade is an A.
Okay, I'm not mad at that. That makes sense.
Yeah, I know.
Like I said, I was even hesitant to give it an A+. Like that's just like because I don't believe any movie is perfect. But
it's like an A at my school. An A is an 85. Okay, I would give it an 85.
Okay,
I would give like something like Get Out an 88 to me.
Okay,
and this is why. Why it doesn't get an A+ or why it doesn't whatever. I need a movie to speak to me and like relate to me most.
That's true.
And with Parasite, it's a good movie. It's a really good one. The plot is cool. Everything's cool. Except for gets points off because I thought the beginning was a little slow for me. But like a movie like Get Out, I relate to more.
That's true. I'm like that's just about a personal like choice. Like if some people like value like being able to like relate and like when it's something so real that you're like, oh my God,
like
Parasite's definitely not real. Like,
no, it's not realistic. It's not realistic.
Like even they asked Korean people, they're like, do you think this is realistic? They're like, well, the class thing is very realistic, but the whole getting murdered for it is probably not realistic.
It was a lot. So I'm like, I would give it an A for being a classic, good movie. Like classy.
I think it's gonna become a classic.
It's really good. It's like it's film. That's the way I say it.
That's like the epitome of just like
it's film,
great like
and
art.
Yeah, it's art, it's film, and it's like some people relate to art more, some people don't, and like I know like critically there's some movies that I know are critically like worse that I would put higher up, and I think it's just because like, of me being able to relate to something. Yeah, that's totally fine. So. No, I didn't even give a bad grade. I gave it that's nice, you know? No, it's y'all just wait till we continue this roasting the movies, because I'm about to give some C's real quick.
Oh, I am ready.
Don't get
it twisted.
Just wait till we do the next one. The next one is not gonna be the next one.
The next one we're actually gonna fight each other.
roast. We're gonna roast. Okay.
But no, like just overall, this movie is just like it's gonna be that movie that people study in film school.
Yes, I agree.
Probably they're already starting to study in film school, but it's gonna be like
I think it'll age
like, you know, the Titanic, but
and I think it'll age. You know, when movies age, like people start to like it less because they're like, ugh. And I think still it'll age to an A- at most. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like even in the future, because like people said that about like what Breakfast Club, like they said that it was like one of the best, and like I watched it and I was like, seriously, like really? That's still anyways. It's not the same thing, obviously. But I'm like, I think even, like I'm saying, even with that effect of like people not liking things in the future as much as they did back then, like of the whole like, oh, this is the first movie to do something or whatever, right. I still think it won't age any lower than A-. Like it'll always be in the A category.
Yeah, I mean like Bong Joon-ho as a director, like I'm a pretty big fan of his work. Like I watched his other movies too. He has like Snowpiercer, Okja. I don't remember.
Okja was very popular, actually. Yeah.
Okja is really good. Snowpiercer is probably like one of my favorite movies too, like of all time. If you haven't watched that one, also go watch it. It's on Netflix.
I haven't watched it. It's so
good. It's like he is really good at doing like his whole thing is like class. Like he likes to talk about class, and in the same way that Parasite uses the symbolism of like upstairs, downstairs as class. Snowpiercer is set on a train, so it's like the back of the train versus the front of the train. That's like the class thing. In general, his movies are just like pieces of art. If you haven't watched any Bong Joon-ho movies, highly recommend Snowpiercer. Snowpiercer's in English, by the way, so
cool.
It's like starring Chris Evans and
Tilda
Swinton or whatever her name is, and Octavia Spencer.
Ooh.
And the dad from Parasite, he's in it too.
Oh, nice.
I think every Bong Joon-ho movie has the dad from Parasite in it. If I'm not
best mistaken. Friends or something.
Yeah, they're like super. It's like Martin Scorsese and like what's his name, Al Pacino or whatever. Whoever he always. Okay. Or, what's his name, Robert De Niro. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's basically the same thing.
Italians.
They're always in. They're always in working together. I'm pretty sure he's gonna be in his next movie too. You know what I mean? Like they're besties. For sure. But anyways, I highly recommend watching Snowpiercer. That's one of my favorites. But anyways,
okay,
that was it.
Yeah, that's pretty much our review for Parasite.
Like I wish I could talk about it. I wish I could hype it as much as it deserves, but it's like there's only so much you can say. Like I could talk about this movie for hours.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it from I like the movie, so you should watch it. It's good. If you don't like,
Andy's notoriously
what?
You're notoriously like critical.
Oh yeah, like I usually don't like movies. So if I think it's good, it's good.
I'm pretty lenient. There's a lot of movies that I like, but
you should also.
If Anne thinks it's good, you go watch it.
Parasite is like rewatchable to people who like thrillers.
I love thrillers.
I don't love thrillers, so it's good like 2 times because you're like, ooh, you know. It's like a good movie to have watched. Like I come out of it being like, yeah, I'm glad that I watched that.
Well, we're talking like this. I hope that everyone's listening to this has watched it.
Yes.
Else I'll be mad if you've listened to this whole podcast and you haven't seen it. But go watch it anyways.
I won't be mad because you're listening.
That's true.
Okay, we'll just talk about what we're doing next week.
Oh yes.
Which is
I kind of forgot.
It's okay. Is it
Versus?
No. Next week we're talking about. No.
I'm just spoiling all of
Why are you exposing all of our ideas? Okay. No, next week we're going to be talking about movies that everybody loves that we hate.
I'm so excited.
And movies that everybody hates that we love.
I already have a good example in my head.
We're doing 3 movies in each category. Yeah. And if you listen to that podcast, whatever movies we mention in that podcast in the future, because
even if it's one that we like,
even if it's one that we like, we will have to roast it. We tried hard to roast this one; it didn't really work, but
roasting doesn't have to be a bad thing too.
Yeah, I roasted it for its violence,
basically. Under fire.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yes, making a little s'mores by the fire.
But yeah, in general, like I'm just thinking of one right now. I know one in my head right now that everyone hated that I love.
Really?
Not everyone. It's probably not a popular movie, but critics slammed it. I love it.
Okay, well, tune in next week to hear us.
I think it's gonna be a good episode.
Have some controversial opinions, essentially.
Yeah, basically.
Which I am full of those. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for listening.
We'll catch you next time.
Okay, bye.